All right, everybody, I don't want to gavel us into a work session. But tonight's study session is to discuss one of our home rule benefits, which is the implementation of a lodging tax, which would go before the voters in this November's election. Mr. Foreman, would you like to kick it off?
Yes, sir. We were instructed to come up with an ordinance and ballot language for this year for a lodging tax, and we've gave that task to Mr. Bob Cole, and I'll introduce Mr. Cole to address that.
Yeah, so we have in your packet draft ordinance, and I think that really serves to frame the discussion. And so the lodging tax is similar to sales tax, which you're familiar with. It's charged based on the charges. It's a percentage based on the charges that are imposed by the vendor. It's in some contexts, it's called an excise tax, but it's a tax. So as a tax, you can use it, the revenues from what it generates for any purpose. And we'll talk about that in a minute and some of the issues around that. So you can use it for any purpose. It's not a fee that needs to be used to pay the costs of the service being provided. So for instance, your water fees, you can't use those to build roads. Use those to provide water service. The lodging tax can be used for any purpose. You can designate it though for specific purposes if you wish. It needs to be stated as a percentage of sales. We'll talk about that in the context of the draft ballot question here a little bit. Because it is a tax under the Tabor Amendment and your charter, it has to be approved by the voters. Even if your charter didn't require it, the Tabor Amendment or Constitution would require it. You would ask that at a November election. It can be asked this November when you'll have your regular city council election. And by doing that, there's some efficiencies in the election because you're already holding. You wanted to put it off and ask it next year in 2025. You could ask that question also in 2025, but it would be an election that you wouldn't otherwise be holding. So you'd have some, additional election costs in that year. In the ordinance, if you look in section 3 on page 2, first section 1, section 2 on page 2, there's a blank for the percentage. If we go forward with this, we've got to figure that out and specify it. We'd specify it here and also in the ballot question. In section 3, there's some blanks. And again, if you want to specify specific purposes, you can do that. You don't have to. You can specify some purposes and then also reserve the ability to use it for any purpose. So we'll use it for this and any other purpose we want. You can take that approach. You'll see in here 3C. I have just kind of as a placeholder as a third mentioned purpose, such other tourism uses is determined reasonable and necessary. Oftentimes, but not always, but oftentimes municipalities will use the revenues from lodging tax to offset costs or marketing or other expenditures related to tourism, because that's who's paying the tax. Does not have to be designated like that, but I just plugged it in here so I was certain to mention that to you as what often happens. And then section 5 of the ordinance specifies the ballot question. And this is a typical format for a Tabor tax question. There's some of the language here that I say is kind of hands off. You shouldn't think about messing with it. And there's some areas here that you can mess with a lot. And so the first clause here is required. Shall town monument taxes be increased blank dollars annually? That's a Tabor required phrase. So that has to be in there, hands off, except we have to figure out the dollar amount expected to be collected and plug that in. And then the statement by a lodging tax and the amount of, again, you have to specify that percentage somewhere. That exact phrase is not a Tabor required phrase, but we have to be clear. So we have to have that statement in some format in there. We'll talk about lodging in a minute. This is stated as a tax on lodging. You can define that as a home rule municipality. You can define what lodging means. So we'll talk about that here in a second. What this ordinance proposes that include. Commencement dates are July 1st or January 1st. Pick one of those. That's what we have to comply with. So I plugged in January 1st of 2025. If you ask this in November, that's a schedule that you can be. Otherwise, if for some reason you didn't want to start the year with it, you can specify July 1st, but these kinds of taxes need to go into effect in January or July. The phrase there in the middle, in conformance with the ordinance, again, not required, but I say highly recommended because the ordinance really defines this. And if there's questions about how to interpret this, we can go back to this ordinance and the attachment, and there's clarity for the taxpayers. So the taxpayers know what you're talking about without having to include the kitchen sink in the ballot question.
One thing we had talked about too in the ballot language is identifying where the funds are going to go to. So make sure that we, even though we identified it in the ordinance, we probably ought to identify it in the ballot language also.
Wouldn't we all also kind of describe what the definition of a lodging tax is that's kind of what you were saying earlier?
Yeah, we could put that in the question. We don't have to if we have it in the ordinance
Well, just because it's going to the public, I wouldn't want people to think that this is a tax that citizens are paying for whatever defines lodging.
So that's a big part of what is usually in the middle of the question.
Mm-hmm.
And, as we work down through at this point in the question, before we get to this last clause, that's where you think about what is it that we need to say so that the taxpayers understand what we're trying to do, so that if we believe it's the right thing, they support it. And so if it's listing the purposes for what it's being collected on, listing the activities that are being taxed, so people are clear on who's getting taxed and who's not, who's paying the tax, who's not. This is the point in the ballot question that we would add that. And oftentimes it's done by bullets, subparagraphs, numbered paragraphs, but I like to usually have that set aside as it's seen here with a completely different section and oftentimes ended with bullet items.
And Bob, is there also an opportunity in the blue book that comes out to be able to do that also in there?
Yeah, so the blue book, the Tabor notice that has to be published, it's got a lot of information that's required to be plugged in. And that information we can't detract from and we can't add to. But where that explanation often gets made is in the pro and con statements.
Right.
So that notice has to have a summary, a 500-word summary of any pro statements that are filed and any con statements. And usually folks that are supportive file pro statements and they provide a lot of that information. So it goes into that notice that then goes out to all the taxpayers, all the residents.
So that's just a voluntary thing. It's not like we try to find people to do pro and con.
Oh, I think there's always some effort by supporting council members to get somebody to write a pro statement, or conversely, if they're opposing council members, they go out and try to find someone to file a con statement. I recommend, it's not a prohibition. I recommend though that council members don't file those because it's been the concern is always, the word you've heard here a lot, electioneering.
Right.
They're trying to electioneer this election, and it's just better to have, I think, the elected officials stay out of that and let others file those statements. That'd be my recommendation, again, not a requirement.
I agree.
No, totally agree. No reason to, start knocking on that door. Is your mic on? We are recording. All right.
If I were to, as a citizen, rent a hotel room for a visiting relative, I'd still pay that tax as well. Okay,
That's right, yeah.
okay.
And kind of to explain that and focus it a little bit. So what I've gone through so far is just the basics of the ordinance, and then the ordinance also adopts amendments to your code to implement the lodging tax. And a lot of this that's in Exhibit A is what I'll describe as down in the weeds. That I don't think is really the purpose of this work session. Talking about what is tax, which is in here, is important, and we will go into that. But I want to just say that a lot of this is just the detail of the collection and reporting and a lot of that administrative stuff. And a lot of that, what is in here, I can guarantee you we're going to change before we bring this to you in file format, because remember, you're going to self-collection on your sales and use tax. And so we've been talking about rewriting your code to implement that and the administration of that. And that, the administration of your sales and use tax self-collection will overlap with the lodging tax if it's approved. So some of what's in here, and maybe even a lot of it, would go into an ordinance that will apply to sales tax, use tax, and if it's approved, if you decide to go forward, lodging tax. So some of that stuff's going to come out. But the description of what is being taxed, that would stay in this ordinance and be adopted by this ordinance, I think. And so if you look on page 7, it starts giving the definitions for this. And what you're doing through these definitions is taxing a lodging transaction, which involves lodging accommodations. And so on the bottom of page 6, going on to 7, we define lodging. And this is a term that's used in a number of different municipalities and their lodging taxes. It's a term that has some definitions attached to it in state statute. And what I've done here is taken a lot of that and then tried to add to that your situation where you have your truck stop parking. And so what it includes, and this is pretty much the run-of-the-mill vanilla inclusions in this definition. Accommodations in hotel, motel, inn, bed and breakfast, resident apartment, hotel, lodging house, motor hotel, guest house, guest ranch, trailer, coach, dwelling unit, or similar establishment of accommodations. That with some variation is in many of these lodging tax ordinances, as are some of the following on related to kind of campgrounds. The campground, mobile home park, auto camp, that's typically in these things, trailer courts, trailer parks, recreational vehicle park, that's in a lot of them, but not all. And then we get to kind of the specific issue that some of you have asked me about for your community, truck stop or truck parking area. And then, we're talking about short-term and rentals of this. So 30 consecutive days or less than 30 consecutive days. If it's 30 days or more, it's like an apartment lease or a lease of the facility. Otherwise, it would fall under this definition. And then we try to, that last clause be again encompassing Doesn't matter if you call it a lease, a rental, a concession permit, right of access, license to use or other agreement. If it's for that above, it's lodging. If it's lodging, it's taxed. It gets taxed at the percentage that's specified.
So when you use the term dwelling unit, does that include ADUs?
It does. So this would include those
ADUs.
short-term rentals.
ADU, oh, short-term SPRs,
Under 30 days. DVROs,
Airbnb.
Airbnbs.
So currently, the taxes that are on lodging right now are all the sales taxes, correct?
That's right. This is the same.
So what do we do here, Mike, as far as short-term rentals? Is there any, like, it's a voluntary registration kind of a thing, or is there anything?
We have no regulations on short-term rentals currently.
Okay.
But a short-term rental today, is there a sales tax that is, we don't have an ordinance that applies one. So this would be it.
This would be a,
And then we'd have to go back later to create some kind of tracking mechanism and registration process for short-term rentals later.
right. And we have Sophia Hossman online. She's our sales tax consultant.
Oh,
Have any questions for her?
okay.
Yeah, and I would like Sophia to just comment generally on this to you also. The lodging tax would be, I think, accompanied by a license permit, business license type permit, lodging business permit, so that, then we can track them and require the payment and put them in the system. Again, that's an administrative system that's going to be very similar to the sales and use tax. And as we're working with Sophia and Mona, we're gonna try to have a set of administrative ordinances that are consistent and apply to all these. And so much of the detail, especially farther down in this exhibit A, the deeper you go into this, the more it just gets to kind of pure administrative stuff that will probably come out of this when we go forward with this.
It would come out of the
Come
ordinance?
out of this ordinance and go into another ordinance that would provide for administration of sales use of law and enforcement, sales use, lodging, include, licensing, those things.
Thank you.
Okay, well, so just a preliminary look, and I know I looked at this some months back, maybe even a year ago. Our surrounding municipal governments have large disparities on the difference in taxes. So Colorado Springs is 2%. Denver is 11.75%. But that's inclusive of a special district for tourism. Pueblo is 4.3% and Woodland Park is 5.7%.
And I can even add some more to that, since you see it, we're talking about it. And one of the things I think you need to look at is what the total tax is, because Colorado Springs is one of the lowest in the country. But by the time you put the RTA and their sales tax and everything else, it comes out to 10.25. So I think we need to look at that, but
What's our normal sales tax?
7.63.
7.63. That's in the areas that don't have the RTA.
Right. Well, I think any lodging areas have that. Do they?
No, I'm not, well, that's the short-term rentals though, but
Yeah.
the
right.
hotel, was that annexed in before?
I'd have to look that up.
And then, of course, the Pilot,
Right.
and Valero, they were,
Laura's been here a long time.
well, the Valero's, yeah, probably doesn't have the RTA, but the Pilot might.
Yep.
Plus the Pilot also has a PIF. So
Right.
I mean, I thought 2% would be a good rate. I don't see us ever getting to Denver's rate for sure.
Well, Parker's is 3, Castle Rock's is 6, Littleton's 5, Aurora's 8. But Colorado Springs is the low one for sure. Yes,
Just for the lodging,
just the lodging.
right, on top of their existing tax.
And Mitch, you were thinking what again?
Two,
Two?
I
We're
mean,
not gonna get rich.
no, it's the point isn't to get rich. The point is just we can do it. And most people, I assume, are not going to be monument residents. They would be coming in to visit. The truckers are going to be the ones that actually probably provide the most revenue because it cycles, right? So pretty much every day times all those spots would be a few bucks here and there would add up. And we could apply it to, a department that doesn't have a tax funding mechanism right now. Like we know 2A is water, we know 2F is police. There's nothing for parks. I don't see. I don't think it should go to the general fund. I think it should be dedicated to a department that is actually providing services out of above and beyond, like parks. That was my thought when, in fact, it was probably discussed, and unfortunately, Mr. Romanello is not here, but when we started going through all of the workshops related to home rule and talked about lodging tax, those were some of the conversations that we had during those workshops, which was where this lodging tax could be applied to.
Mhm. I think one of the concerns is going to be, do you apply to all parks in the town of Monument or just to parks that the town of Monument oversees? Because you're going to be collecting the tax throughout the town of Monument.
One more time.
So the town of Monument only maintains and creates parks on a certain section of the town. Another entity maintains parks in their section of town.
That is part of their, let's just call it out, Triview or Village Center or Willow Springs. If parks is in their items to maintain, then they can maintain it through their mill levies. Whereas the town doesn't collect a mill levy for just living here other than the normal property tax. So I would say that this tax is dedicated to the municipality creating and maintaining parks and not a metro district. But that's my opinion, and everybody's entitled to their own if they want.
Except the mill levy for Triview are specifically for the debt reduction, right?
Mm,
Think about for
Except for we give,
the voters of Triview agreed for a mill levy override of up to 7 as part of that 35 initial 30, well, the 35. Right now they're collecting 2 for O&M, but that's because the voters needed that we Triview made the case to the voters that we needed O&M, but if the town of Monument, if we are in the town of Monument, let us know. But if we are in the town of Monument and the town of Monument is going to collect a lodging tax for the parts of town of Monument, then let's be part of Monument. If Triview is not part of Monument, cool, no worries. Let us know, and then we can move on, but either we're in Monument and we're treated like Monument, or we're not.
So who,
It's
But
simple.
you're already special in the fact that the Metro District collects half of all the taxes it collects in the district. If they can't maintain their parks with that, plus get free police services, because they do.
No.
Yeah, they
pay
do.
Taxes, nothing's free.
You pay half the taxes are taken from the town. And for what purpose back in the 90s they decided to pass that? I don't know. But if you can't make, whoever created the parks, which is the developers, who are they dedicating them to? Are they dedicating them to the town or are they dedicating them to the
They're-
Metro District?
Monument, and then Triview maintains them, just like the roads are owned by the town of Monument. They're maintained by Triview by agreement.
So if the Metro District decides that no longer wants to maintain those parks and roads, then that means that the taxes they collect can go back to the town of Monument.
There are other costs that Triview incurs,
Now,
like
you get-
road maintenance, like trails
like I
maintenance.
said, if you are giving up the roads and you are giving up the parks, you're giving up the tax. You don't get to keep the tax and maintain that the town is,
Is that the route we want to take?
Let's look at it this way. So whoever owns the parks, so I guess I don't really see this tax as something being like a maintenance on parks. Where, you cut the grass and, fix fences and things like that. It seems more like it should be a capital improvements kind of a thing. So in that case, whoever owns the parks, which if it's the town, I mean, if it's a metro district that owns the parks, it's a different story. But if a town owns the parks,
then I'm okay with it. If the town actually owns the park.
Right,
if The
but this-
Metro District
but this,
owns it.
I wouldn't consider this being for maintenance. I mean, the other mechanisms that we have for collecting tax for maintenance should be for maintenance. In which case Triview would maintain Triview's parks and Town of Monument would maintain the parks over here. But this should be more like a capital improvements kind of a thing.
As I recall in the 2F language, ballot language, we were extremely specific about where the money went, where it was collected from, and how it was going to be spent. And I think when we do this ballot language, Bob needs to look at that, and we need to be extremely specific about where it goes, what it's going to do. Is it going to be for maintenance? Is it going to be for special projects? Is it going to be for major projects and stuff like that? And is it just going to be for what the town of Monument owns and maintains in addition to what Triview maintains?
I think we'd have to look to see what the service agreement calls for. So,
Sure.
well, the IGA and the service plan.
Right.
If the service plan and the IGA say that part of this tax has to go to Triview, fine. I don't think there's any other metro district that has an agreement like Triview does. But
Are we arguing about the IGA or are we arguing about the lodging tax and how we're going to use it? What is this discussion about?
It's a definition, and part of that goes to what the existing agreements are.
Yeah, so
So the answer is yes.
the answer is we're here to talk about a lodging tax, not to rehash the IGA and whoever passed it and whatever was agreed. If we want to rehash the IGA,
No.
but you're the one who brought up, where's the money gonna go to?
You have to understand what the.
Going to
idea
Monument.
is, to understand where the money needs to go.
who do you need to pass this lodging tax?
The voters of Monument.
Who are the voters of Monument?
Well, we already know who the voters of Monument are. They live in all the developments within the town limits. If some of this winds up being transferred over to the metro districts that have agreements for it, then fine. Not opposed to it. Unless they're already collecting money specifically called out in the agreement that
That's
says,
immaterial.
so we just keep giving them more money. We're not gonna grow the metro district. That's not the purpose of metro districts in their intent.
Again, is this a discussion about the lodging tax or is this a discussion about metro district?
Yes,
If the metro districts are Monument citizens and residents, then the taxes that we, the town of Monument, collect should go to the town of Monument. All 10,000. If this is not a tax for the town of Monument, it's a tax for whatever, then you don't need all the voters. If you want all 10,000 voters, and you're saying in the ballot language that the town of Monument, and I'm pretty sure the town of Monument includes other, the entire town lines, then it should go to the town of Monument. However, the other metro districts use the money that they collect is immaterial. This is a lodging tax that we, the town of Monument, are adding to the money that the town collects on behalf of its residents and its citizens to operate the town.
Okay, but we have a specific amount of parks in our inventory, correct?
Okay.
And so that's where I envision
Okay.
this lodging, if we were to even select parks. We don't have to select parks,
Call it capital improvements,
right?
whatever, X.
But if it was parks, it would be only parks that were in the monument's official inventory of parks. So that would preclude Willow Springs, Village Center, Triview, and am I missing any other metro? Oh, Monument Junction.
But I think Monument owns the parks in Triview. Am I wrong about that?
We own them, but we don't maintain them.
That's why I
We
would
don't do
So
say,
then if it's owned
you
by
take-
them, then if they're
if you
part, if they're
take-
part of our inventory,
No, we
well,
don't
then how do we
any-
own them if they're not part of our inventory?
It's just like the streets. We own the streets, but we don't do any work on the streets.
That's through a separate agreement.
That's through the IGA. If you read the IGA, it lists streets, parks, and a couple of other things. I can send you the IGA if you need it.
No,
I think I can send it to you. Yeah.
So the town of Monument shares with Triview the proceeds of the sales tax and the road tax, bridge tax, whatever. Heck, the laundry list of taxes
Then
that
it,
Monument collects because special districts cannot collect taxes.
then they would get, they would,
Correct. So the town of Monument collects the taxes on behalf of the special districts that are in its town limits. And then it distributes those taxes because the town of Monument owns the roads, the parks, the trails. And by agreement, by legal binding agreement that town of Monument made with Triview, whether you like it or not, that's immaterial. It's an agreement that said, we own it, you maintain it, and here's the money to maintain it.
So you're giving them the money to maintain it, and now what I'm hearing you say is, it's okay if they take extra money.
So not extra money.
Well, that's what this would be. This would be extra money, because it's an extra tax.
Yes, if town of Monument is collecting, let's call it an extra tax.
Then it should be
Then-
distributed.
Then it needs to be distributed by agreement. Because if it's going to parks, if it's going to trails, if it's going to roads, whatever. And the IGA says, Triview, Willow Springs, whomever, you guys maintain these on our behalf, but we own them. Then that tax needs to go to the districts that are maintaining our stuff on our behalf. If we say a portion.
Unfortunately.
If on the other hand, we say it's gonna go to capital improvements for the town, whatever that might be. A footbridge, not footbridge, what's the walk bridge over I-25, whatever. Okay, I'm just throwing spaghetti on the wall to see what sticks. X. Then that's a different matter. But if we're going to collect it for roads, parks, or trails, or what have you, then that's a separate matter.
okay, I don't know that you're gonna get disagreement.
by the way, this is a really good argument for why we have districts here. No, I'm serious. This is a
Or
good,
you-
this
you
is a,
mean,
this is a good
Not
dis-
districts, but the voting districts, you mean?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
this is
because
a-
you're advocating for
'cause
your
you're-
district, which is
Mhm.
exactly what you're supposed to be doing.
right. So this, I just want to make that point, that this is the reason right here, because you come with different ideas and needs and stuff from living in a place, right? Again, I don't know if we need to decide this today, but I think it should go for, if we're gonna do parks, capital improvements for parks that the town owns. If a metro district owns and maintains and does their own parks, that's a whole different story because we don't own them. And then figure out how to distribute the money, or
Yeah, can we, speaking of capital improvements, is that too vague?
It's not too vague to implement. It may be too vague to satisfy the reasons you're
Yeah.
trying to be specifying a purpose.
Are we, okay, trick question, no, it's not a trick question, but loaded question. If we say in the ballot language that it goes to X, we're beholden to that X, right?
If that's the way you say it, you don't say including but not limited to or purposes,
Yeah,
you know,
the-
any town purposes and including, you know, we can tinker with it all, but if what you say is we're only gonna use it for this,
yeah.
then that's all you need.
Here's
Yeah,
here's my line of thinking, because if we could say capital improvements, that could go to a renewable water system,
I would see it that way.
or no?
2A has two primary bullet points.
Okay.
One of them, the first bullet point is the town to acquire water rights,
Yeah,
which we can get to at another time. I don't remember the second bullet point, but it probably has to do with infrastructure and maintenance and things like that, like the well,
yeah,
right? Or not the well, the wells, but the water tank, right? And,
Yeah.
and that 2A was written,
Yeah.
what, 20 years ago?
Long time.
Long time ago. So I was trying to think of another place for it to go.
large water.
Um,
Well, I think for purposes of, if we look at this from a little bit of a historical perspective, remember the ballot language that we had for the police the first time? Because it was so vague, it didn't pass. The reason it passed the second time was you could point to it
Yeah.
and say, bing, 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 and they went, oh,
No, it
okay,
should be
that makes
specific.
sense. Yeah, I agree. So it's just a matter of,
Yeah. Forgot that 2A called in.
Yeah.
I was hoping to, because
Nice try.
Yeah, it's gonna be a hefty bill.
Do we have any way of even
Anyway.
determining how much of revenue this would bring in?
well, I was gonna actually ask that. I was gonna see if,
Depends on the percentage you set it at.
well, right, but we don't know what the current, I mean, we can ask occupancy from the hotel easy enough, right? How many nights are you booking a year? And the truck stop, we can ask. So we don't know what the amount of revenue potential is. What's our time limit, Bob, on getting this finalized?
So we have to certify the ballot question around the first week of September.
Oh.
We got a little,
So we've got some time, and this might be a good time to let Sophia Hassman, your consultant for your sales and use tax sale collection, jump in here because she has some thoughts without getting overly specific on how we can come up with the numbers to plug in. Of course, you'll have to decide the percentage.
Sure.
Right.
You may have some other comments that might be helpful to hear at this time too.
Okay, Sophia, if you would like to unmute.
Good evening, council. So I've been here the whole time listening on the lodging
Will.
issues and. Okay, now?
All right, go ahead.
Okay,
we're just turning your volume up.
okay, great, thank you. So listening to, some of the questions with regards to the lodging tax. It's really a tax in addition to the sales tax that's due on lodging that already exists, which is currently collected by the state of Colorado. And, it's a little bit unknown without having a license process for short-term rentals currently, how much lodging tax might be collected through like an Airbnb or a VRBO provider on short-term rentals that might be happening within Monument. So that component of the budget is a little bit less identifiable, but you have, the hotels and the truck stops. We can look at some information from their sales taxes and other things to kind of compute some potential amount, but you don't have a massive amount of hotels currently in the town. So, if you're really looking at like your biggest provider is going to be your main hotel there and maybe the truck stop. And that, if you had a 2% fee, you might be talking about, $50,000 or $60,000 a year in lodging tax revenue. So not computing all the other potential little players in the game, but that might be somewhat of a guesstimate for your budget. And, really considering where you need that money the most, I guess would be the question.
How difficult would it be to get it more solid jello versus a liquid jello?
Because we're not yet self-collected, I think,
Yeah.
and there's also not the marketplace facilitator details from the state of Colorado on the Airbnb, the VRBO. That's going to be a little bit trickier. We can get a better idea on the hotel, but we also don't want to disclose, their confidential revenue streams specifically.
Yeah.
So I think then it would just be trying to inquire with the truck stop about their activity and getting better numbers on how much fees they might be collecting for overnight stays.
Okay.
One of the concerns that staff has is that, like Sophia was saying, there's not a lot of revenue coming in from this, but it's going to take a lot of administrative time. We've got a sales tax consultant we have to pay, we have to purchase software, and then staff's going to have to do a lot of work. So 2%, I'm not sure that's going to cover the administrative cost of doing this.
Well,
Yeah,
and 2%, just to give you an idea, is 100. Colorado Springs, as far as the lowest ranking goes for this, is 141 out of 150. So that gives you kind of an idea.
141.
It's out of 150 lowest municipalities, they rank 141.
That's Colorado Springs.
Yes,
Percentages.
on percentages.
But we've already approved software for the self-collection. Is there some other component just for lodging tax that?
It kind of depends. We're in the implementation phase for our sales tax software. So if we were to tax it as the same as sales tax, so it's applied to the same type of lodging, there's not any special exemptions. We can have a special line on our sales tax return that would account for the lodging tax revenues. And that would probably be minimal work and hopefully no cost to implement with our current process. But we kind of need to make those decisions or at least start to pen them into the implementation now. If we make changes once the implementation goes live to the tax system, or if we need to add in other additional licensing and special approvals for short-term rentals, that would be a potential additional cost to the program in the future. So I don't think it would be too much to just add a line on the sales tax return that the lodging companies would already have to fill out at this point. But in the future, if we were to add additional functionality for short-term rental licensure or other things, then that might be an additional implementation cost and programming.
Well, that's news to me, so I'm glad that you brought up that concern, but nevertheless, it's something that we have to decide if we want to let the voters vote on or not, regardless.
So if it was 4%, which would still be on the lower end, is that worth it? I mean, we'd have to justify whatever's worth it, and if not, then
Right.
we need to move on.
Mona had spoke to me today about this and she had suggested 5%.
5%.
Yep.
And that's profitable minus the cost to implement. But I mean, once it's implemented, then it's 5%.
Right.
So I was looking around, just like Council Member King, he looked around and saw what the percentage everybody around us charge, and that would be like an average. And to be honest, I was looking at lodging tax in 2022 when I was hired. And Mike and I discussed, but then we were not home rule, but 5% will cover because I don't think we know exactly the direction we want to go now, but we need to move forward with the sales tax. because we're trying to implement the collection of the sales tax in the last quarter. So I believe we're gonna have additional expenses related to the lodging tax if we don't know exactly how the lodging tax program should be now. So we can include in the implementation of the software we use.
So, okay, because we've got 10 minutes before, here's what I would suggest, and if everybody agrees, Mike and staff goes out and tries to figure out, A, what the implementation costs would be, as hard as jello you can get.
Exactly.
And also what potentially could be the current ability to figure out the revenue that would come in from the hotel and the truck stops.
Not VRBO.
You're not, I don't think you're
It's
able
gonna
to
be
figure that
tough.
out.
That might be a bridge.
Yeah, but
Yeah.
can we try to establish a number on that? I mean,
I don't know how. I mean,
well, I mean, but there are municipalities that probably have a certain percentage that they can figure out.
I'm thinking the first step, though, would probably be some sort of registration for VRBOs and Airbnbs that I think this discussion probably spins off into.
yeah, like Wheat Ridge, I looked at theirs.
Yeah.
They've got a cap, they got a licensing
Yeah.
process of the market, their stock. I think that comes later,
Okay.
but I don't know how you capture today. Unless you were to go and ask the assessor, how many houses have a PO box where you're sending your statement to and use it as a swag? That
It's
they're,
gonna be a tough.
yeah,
Well, and even that,
That's
people
still
sometimes
Jello.
rent their
Yeah.
basements.
right, they rent their basement.
Gel in the box.
That's
Yeah.
Jello,
Yeah.
right? We haven't even opened the box yet.
And then if you can get that information, and then maybe in a couple of weeks, well, maybe after the July, the holiday, we can come back and everybody should think about where they would like the money to go to. And if there's anything that you can do, Bob, on the Metro District front to determine how that would work, if it did go to parks versus something else.
And I sent each of y'all a copy of the ballot language that we'd previously used on 2 other ballot issues.
And then we can meet back in a month and see where we're at.
I had a
Winning
quick
that.
question for Sophia.
Exactly.
Sophia, I'm looking at the draft version and it says that the language taxes be increased by blank annually. Have you seen like a normal percentage that it goes up annually in your experience? If anyone knows.
Yeah.
Okay.
Let me explain that language. It really doesn't go to the question you're asking. That's not intended to be, to state an annual increase. It states the first year's annual tax revenue from that measure
Okay.
based on the percentage that then is stated later in the question.
You know, the.
Required ballot language.
Not, okay.
It's not an
Sorry.
annual increase that
It
keeps
won't,
applying year.
but
after
can
year.
we, can we do that where it's in the language where we apply a small percent that increases? So it doesn't, it's more automatic, does that?
Can't increase,
I can't.
no, once the percentage
It's
is
set.
there, it's set. Because every increase has to be voted on.
Oh,
Yeah.
got it. So I misunderstood
The
that. Never mind,
growth
Sophia.
comes from applying it to more things.
Yeah.
Said, we have to have our ducks in a row before we
Right.
implement everything, because any changes would be extra work.
So Bob, one question I've got about this. So say they determine that they want to apply it to hotels and truck stops right now, but the ordinance says they can apply it to that entire
Other-
list.
Yeah.
They don't have to go back to the voters to apply it to the entire list, do they?
As long as
Good
we're
question.
clear about what has to go back and what doesn't.
Right.
And the way this is written is it allows you to amend those administrative procedures and definitions and the like by simple council ordinance. And so,
So the voters approve the big list and then we go
Right.
through the ordinances to apply the what lodging means
yes.
after the fact. That
Yes.
if the
You
voters
could-
approved
you
it.
could The way it's written now, you could tweak that later.
Right.
Now, as the discussion is on tonight, also you would restrict the uses. And if you do that in the ballot question, then you're stuck with those.
Where the money goes to.
That's right.
I think we're all in agreement that it does not go to the general fund.
Yeah, that's.
It'll never win if you do that.
Right.
that's-
So we want to make sure that it's something the voters want.
Right.
And since we have until September, if we get this stuff narrowed down in July, we should have a workshop and make sure the residents know that this is coming.
Okay.
And to give us some feedback as
Feedback.
to where they would want the money to go.
Okay.
That would be good, yeah.
And do a town hall or something or whatever.
I like that idea.
Just email them.
Email everybody. All right. Then we'll take a 5-minute recess before the regular scheduled meeting starts. Call to order this regular meeting of the Monument Town Council, June 3rd, 2024. Please stand for the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Ms. Erickson, we take roll, please.
Councilmember Chronic,
Here.
Councilmember Romanello, we'll come back. Mayor Pro Tem King,
Here.
Councilmember Abbott,
Here.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Here,
Mayor LaKind,
Here.
Councilmember Kimple,
Here.
and Councilmember Romanello. Here.
Councilmember Romanello is stating that he's not he's showing that he's not a participant or he should be a presenter, right? Councilmember Romanello, were you able to hear that? That you need to unmute? It says his mic is grayed out. Mr. Romanello, can you restart your teams and rejoin? We see that you're here and that you're trying. We'll mark you as present. While we're waiting for Councilmember Romanello to reboot, we'll go through the disclosures of conflicts of interest. Any disclosures, Mr. Cole?
I did not receive any for this meeting.
Okay. Seeing none. We have an agenda and a consent agenda. Is there any modifications to the agenda? Will, any modifications to the agenda?
Yes. Yes, for resolution number 28-2024. I'd like to remove it from the agenda tonight. From the last council meeting, we did some additional research and need to reassess the software side of the agenda process to see whether we need to readjust the RFP.
Okay, is there any objections to anybody doing that? Okay, so we've got modification to, we will say continue this resolution, right, Mr. Cole? We will continue this resolution and we'll put down the first meeting in July. Is that should be enough time?
Yes.
Okay, if not, we can continue it again. So that would be July. No, is it? No. July 1st.
Yes, sir.
That was going to be a question later on. I was going to ask you, do you want to have a meeting July 1st? But I
Oh,
think
oh, well.
You're welcome to have it here.
Yes, you and Patty are invited
yeah.
down to Monument. We haven't gotten that far yet, but you're asking at this point whether we want to host a meeting before the 4th parade, before the
Exactly.
holiday.
Yes.
Or Rolex to the following Monday, or just.
We would cancel the meeting. We only have to have
I'm
one
good
per
with
month.
canceling.
Mr. Kimple, are you good with canceling?
July 15th.
Okay, so you can strike July 1st from the meeting agenda.
And we'll.
And- We are all traveling up to,
Yes.
and then we'll go on the 15th.
Sounds
So
good.
you have until the 15th, continue to the 15th. That should be, based on our previous meeting, that should be plenty of time to even maybe get responses to the RFP.
Yes, sir.
Perfect. All right, any other modifications to the agenda? If not, I will look for a motion.
I move to accept the consent agenda as modified.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
He's still unable to, he says his mic is disabled.
I enabled it and it's showing it as enabled in the system.
Mr. Romanello, would you like to try to unmute and? He did.
His mic and his camera showed as enabled.
He's sending me pictures. It says only select participants can unmute, and so he cannot unmute. The link he has is as a presenter, not a participant.
Yeah, because it's showing on the screen that his mic.
Okay, we will continue. Will, maybe since I don't know if we have to do a presentation, Mona, are you going to be presenting that?
Actually, now I have Max from Piper Sadler presenting, but I was counting on Councilmember Romanello to also be able to at least hear, because he's the one proposing to expand our investment opportunities.
We had a meeting with Max and with Jim,
Yes.
and me and Mona. And so Jim was key part of that meeting. And once again, this was his idea to
Yeah,
council.
he needs to
Had
be on.
instructed us to talk about this, so it would be very instrumental for us to have Jim online.
Yeah, he needs.
All right, well, we'll take 5 minutes to allow Will to work with Mr. Romanello to get him working.
Thank you, Mayor.
Thanks, Max.
Didn't we do that?
Not like that. We're waiting for Jim.
Oh,
We're waiting for
okay.
Jim's phone.
Okay.
Hello, can
Need
you
a
hear
motion
me?
to approve the agenda as modified.
Wait. Say again?
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes. Oh, that's Max.
Max.
Hello, can you hear
Alright.
me?
Whatever.
I'm gonna call
Yes.
Mr. Romanelli.
Max, we can hear you. Just hold on a second.
I am so sorry for having some technical issues.
Max, hold on 1 second.
Okay.
Okay, so he's going to go work with Mr. Romanello. In the meantime, we need a motion to approve the agenda as modified.
I so move.
I second.
Okay, there's the motion, Ms. Erickson.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Aye.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimpel,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Will's calling him, so I don't know what's going on. Councilmember Romanello, maybe?
He's dropped off.
Apparently, Will, yes, Will said that he's using a different account, not the team's account, not the town account. That's the, I think that's the issue.
Okay, so if we can get Max's volume turned up, because I had a hard time hearing him. It'll be hard to hear the presentation. Grab the remote and turn the no, the TV volume can be turned up by remote.
Hi, Mona.
Hey, oh,
Little louder.
Hi, Mona. I think I'm about to go on live.
That's good.
okay.
That's good.
Yes,
Okay, thank you.
perfect.
Thank you.
Hi, Max.
Hello. Hello, can you guys hear me?
Yes, we hear you.
Well, first, my apologies for the delay, and thank you for making the time to do this presentation. I'll probably take 15 minutes or less and answer your questions. So this came out of the last quarterly meeting that we did a month ago, that there were some talks that, there might be additional liquidity in the town's portfolio, and we could look at some other options besides what we've been doing and going out 3 to 12 months. And also looking at, I think this is a good page to stop on. So, and looking at other options to be able to take care of where the interest rates are today, where the forecast is for the interest rates, and having some additional options to add to the bond portfolio without creating additional risk, but taking advantage of the interest rates, potential lower interest rates in the future. So right now, you look at 2024 balances and upcoming maturities. We have about 2.6, close to $2.7 million in cash. There's another 2.5 million coming back in July, in about 2 months or less than 2 months. And then we have October, another 2.3, and January 2025, 2.6. So now the question is, what other options do we have for this current 2.7 million approximately to do beside, what we've been doing in the past, buying treasuries, going out 12 months. But, when you look at the markets, and the consensus right now is that interest rates are going to go down at some point when when inflation is under control, and 2025, maybe end of 2024, we're going to have interest rates being cut. And if we go to the next page, please. So there is a relationship between interest rates and bond prices. Sorry, I have my. So right now, if you look at interest rates, when interest rates go down, bond prices will go up. And this relationship have always existed. Now, we are looking at the market that, interest rates have been up for the last 4 years, prediction is lower interest rates, and potentially about maybe 200 basis points by 2%. So the conversation that came out of last quarterly meeting, and also sitting down with Mona and Mike and town council member Romanoro, was that why don't we extend the maturity? Because the longer the maturity and stay within the investment policy and the state code, we can take a bigger advantage of bond prices appreciating when interest rates going down. So that's where this proposal is coming from. extending duration, extending maturity, and taking advantage of when interest rates will go lower. So if you can go to the next page, please. So the proposal we have is that to consider this $2.6 million that we have to extend it into 5-year maturity and take advantage of the price bump when interest rates fall. Now, I think the fine print that we have to also mention is that all investments, including this 5-year maturity, will follow the credit and liquidity requirements under the Town of Monument investment policy and also the State of Colorado code for all public entities and municipalities when they want to consider investments. So we're not going out of the scope, we're just extending the maturity to potentially take advantage when interest rates go down. If you can go to the next page, please. And this is to give you an idea. So one option is look at other taxable, other municipalities when they issue bonds, and these are called taxable municipal bonds. And this is just to give you an idea what type of interest rates you'll be looking at if you extend to 5 years. And I know this is a lot to take in, but I think one thing we can look at is, you can look at the state. These are where the municipalities are located. And this is a sheet as of about 2 weeks ago when I put this presentation together. So let's say look at the bottom when you look at California taxable various purpose. It's a general obligation. The state of California is one, not exactly the bottom one above it. And it goes out to March of 2029, and it has the yield of 4.6%. Now you might say, well, 4.6, right now we're getting 5% on cash. Why should we extend and lock in a lower rate? And that's a very good question and fair question to ask. And that goes to the nature of where interest rates are. Short-term interest rates are very related to where current interest rates are. And interest rates are right now at 5.5% with the Fed fund, where the Federal Reserve has their benchmark. But once they cut the interest rates by 200 basis points, by 2%, the actual cash would go down to 3%. And this could happen 6 months from now. But the town would have locked in the 4.6% today. And in addition to locking in that 4.6%, let's say you paid $2.6 million. Now that $2.6 million potentially could be worth $3.4 million. So not only you locked in that 4.6 million, now you have a bump in the value of the bond. And this is the strategy that was discussed. We give up a little bit of current yield, about 40 basis points. Instead of collecting 5%, we're going to collect 4.6%. And what we are gaining is that potentially when interest rates go down, not only we've locked in that 4.6%, when our cash will be earning 3%, we have a bump in the value of that investment that we could sell and put it back in any projects that we want. And because Town of Monument is a municipality, you don't have to pay capital gain taxes when you buy a bond at, let's say, 2.6 million and you sell it for 3.4 million. The $800,000 gain is not taxable and it fully goes back to the town. So, and that's what we're considering on this particular portion, this 2.7 million, we're considering this a strategy. And the two instruments in the bond market we're looking at is the first is taxable municipal bonds, meaning buying other municipal debt. And these are general obligation or highly rated revenue bonds. And if you go to the next page, please. Oh, thank you. So the other option is high-grade corporate bonds. So if you look at the names, you probably remember, most of these corporate names that they also issue debt. They're all rated in the A or AA type of rating, which is approved by the investment policy and the state code. And that's another instrument. So you look at the 5-year for, let's say, Progressive, the very bottom one going out to 2029, you're collecting 4.79, and the same math applies. You lock in that rate, interest rates go down, you have a bump in price, you could sell it and you could put that gain back into your bank account and use it for various projects that the town might need. So this is the gist of the strategy that we're considering. Obviously, these names are as of 2 weeks ago, rates are as of 2 weeks ago, but things haven't moved significantly. They have gone down, up a little bit, but I wanted to see if you have any questions. I think that's regarding the bond market, regarding interest rates, regarding this strategy, and I would love to answer those questions and see if any questions out there.
Max, could you and Jim go over how rare this is? Y'all talked about that in our meeting about how rare this opportunity is.
Yeah,
That's
I'm on this right now, guys. And Max, you mind if I jump in?
No, go ahead, please.
I didn't mean to interrupt you. So, guys, I just want you to understand that, if this isn't like your backyard or your world, so to speak, that bond teeter-totter that he showed, if you wanted to go back to it, that's physics. That is just, it's absolute physics. So when interest rates go down, bond values go up. When interest rates go up, bond values go down. So what's happened is this has not been a real available opportunity in my entire career, and I've been doing this 35 years. The last time this was an opportunity was like 46 years ago. Keep in mind just that the big question that somebody that is novice to this is completely staying within the state regulation on safe investing for taxpayers' dollars. So I'm just checking that box like Max did already. So because the Fed rose rates fast and quickly, they devalued bonds fast and quickly. So you can't use the word sure or guaranteed of, but what Max and I are confident about is there's not going to be any more raising. We don't know when they're going to lower, but they will lower, or how fast. But if you just wait and make your, the 4 to 6% that he's showing you while you're waiting, and then when the Fed does go into a lowering policy and flips that teeter-totter, you sell them, the town makes a good gain on a bond, which is a very rare thing, and that's where we were coming from with this. And I'm sorry I'm remote and can't participate with the graphics or anything, but it's a very common sense play. So I just wanted to throw that in.
And I think the other thing that you need to know is this is only about 2.7 million of our entire $10 million investment portfolio that we're talking about doing this.
The other concern that I had that some of you may have as well was town liquidity. That's just very, very important. And if you look at, was that because I was, when Max was first going over this, guys, I was with Will on the phone, making sure I was set up right. Is that slide on there that shows the ladder? Yeah, there it is. So you can see that we're going to have, in July, like literally next month, another 2.5 million coming available. In October, another 2.3 million. In January. So you're going to have up to $7.5 million of liquidity rolling back to the town. We're not talking about locking everything up. We're doing this very wise and very conservatively, but also so the town can make money.
So I have a question as well, and it'll be like I'll just spit it all out and then you can pick the pieces out of it. But if we did T-bonds or CDs or bought like an ETF in TLT or HYG or something to that effect, wouldn't that do the same thing? Or, I mean, because the T-bonds, the value of those would go up if interest rates went down as well. Is that correct? Or is this better than that?
That's a great question. So I don't think ETFs are approved in the investment policy of the town or the state of Colorado for municipalities.
Okay.
So going back to the T-bonds, you're right. It would be the same effect in price appreciation, but the rate that you're potentially locking in while you're waiting for the rates to go down. And I think the key is we don't know if it's next month or 6 months from now, or potentially, 12 months from now. We know it's going to happen. We don't know the timing. So the rates you're locking in while you're waiting is going to be less. That's the only difference. The capital appreciation would be the same.
Okay. That's kind of what I thought. That's why I wanted to ask that.
So at the end of July, would you be coming back again with another suggestion when the 2.576 comes available?
So that's one thing that we would take direction from the council on. Right now, our strategy is just to invest this 2.7 million and then most likely leave the rest as liquid so that we can, if anything comes up, we need to use it for, we could use it for that. But if council directed us to bring this back in July, then we would. But to Jim's point, rates may lower by then and your little teeter-totter photo there may have balanced out or gone up. And so we'll have to take Max and Jim and me and Mona, I'll have to take a look at that time. Because that's why we're trying to do it now, is because they expect rates to lower. And if rates lower, the bond prices are gonna go up.
So let's say over the next couple of years that the rates go down from 5.5 to 2.5 or whatever it is gonna end up at. Then that those bonds just get sold. I mean, when is the trigger for selling them?
That's a great question. So it's not a science that I would say that, this is, I would point out to a chart and show you, a date or number. But what I would say is, I would come back to you and to Mike and Mona and say, look, we bought this at, we paid 2.6 million. Rates have gone down 150 basis points. They might go down another 50, but right now you're in money this much. And the good thing about all the bonds that we showed, they have 2-day liquidity, meaning that if the town decides to sell them, the cash balance would be, including interest, accrued interest would be in the town bank in 2 days. So I would say I would communicate with Mike, Mona, and you, and say, look, we're up this much. Rates might go even lower, another 50 basis point. But if you want to sell today and you don't want to gamble the other 50 basis point, and this is your capital gain, you could sell and you have the cash in 2 days. So again, it's the timing. I can't say exactly when, but I could come and report to you that this is up this much. Interest rates have already gone down this much, might go even lower, but then, it's all good news by then because you're already in the money. Would you want to be in money another 5%, or would you sell at this point and just get your gains? So that would be an ongoing conversation as soon as interest rates go lower.
Okay, thank you.
Are you looking for direction?
Yes, sir. We are.
Okay, so staff's looking for direction to reinvest that 2.6 million, 75 something, 2670 into a 5-year bond, is it?
Right.
And
Consider the investing of liquid 2.6 into a bond or couple of bonds with 5-year final maturity and take advantage of the price bump when interest rates fall.
And these are all A or better rated, so
Right.
they're
It meets the state requirements for municipalities making wise, conservative choices.
And
so
if
Jim,
I
you're in
can,
favor?
oh, sorry, go ahead.
I missed that. I'm sorry.
Okay, if everybody's good with giving direction to
Yes.
staff to do that, then I would. We don't need a motion.
Max, when could we do this? What's the soonest we can complete a transaction?
Well, the investment is in cash. I can send you some options tomorrow morning, and then we can discuss it and pick. It's just picking the name that you're comfortable with in terms of if it's a corporate bond or if it's a municipality, and we can move after that. We can move pretty quickly.
Okay.
And Mr. Romanello will be a part of that conversation?
Yes. Definitely.
I am glad and honored to.
Okay, then you have your direction.
Thank you.
I like it.
Appreciate it, Council.
Thank you.
Good job.
Thank you to Max and to Councilmember Romanello for making us some money.
Yep.
Thank
And
you.
Mona too.
And Mona.
I'm Mona,
Mona.
yes.
All right, we'll move on to ordinance number 11, 2024, an ordinance approving the 2024 Comcast franchise agreement with the town of Monument. Mr. Foreman.
that he can walk you through. He negotiated the franchise agreement with Comcast and kind of walk you through. We provided you with the agreement.
So in your packet was a memo providing some basic terms that are in the agreement. I won't reread that, but we can cover any of those issues that are in that memo if you have questions or any questions on the franchise. Now, we did receive some questions before the meeting that we'll go over, and Javon's going to take some of those. He did a lot of work on this agreement. He frankly knows the details, many of the provisions better than I. One of the questions, though, that came up really kind of relates to the town's franchise authority. And so to kind of get everybody on the starting page there, when you're doing a franchise agreement, what you're basically doing is authorizing someone to operate on town property. In this case, it's generally within the rights of way. So putting lines and poles and infrastructure on town governed property rights of way. In some cases, franchise agreements go and address other types of municipal properties, park properties, or others. But it's a right then to utilize that property, and then in exchange for that, usually there's a fee and there's also conditions attached to the service that's being provided. Your authority to franchise extends to services like gas service, electricity. In terms of, the cable world and telephone world and those kinds of things, you are limited in large part by federal law on what you can franchise. So you can franchise video service, but you can't franchise audio service. So you can't franchise telephone. And you can't franchise data, internet service. So we turn the clock way, way back. We used to franchise some of those services, and municipalities got a lot of revenue from that. But because of federal policy that was intended to facilitate many things, including trying to provide internet service out to the world, out to public, out to rural areas especially, and take down impediments to that. One of the powers that we used to franchise, one of the types of services we used to franchise, you can't do that any longer. You can't franchise cable, data services and internet service. So some of the questions we got, I think, probably related to why aren't we franchising some of these service providers? If they're providing internet service, we can't franchise them. If you look at your bundled bills, if you have bundled services, and so for instance, if you have internet, if you have the video service, the TV service, and you have telephone service all from one provider, you'll see that in general, you're not going to be paying a franchise on the telephone portion of that bundled service. You're not going to be paying a franchise fee on the internet portion of that bundled service. So that's one explanation for some of the questions that we got. And I'm going to ask Javon to go through some answers to some other questions we got.
Yeah. So one of the first questions we got was just in terms of reimbursement of fees. So your town code does allow for, and actually requires the franchisee to reimburse the fees. So shouldn't be an issue.
And we've asked Bob to give us a history of all the legal fees that he's charged for franchise agreements, and we're going to give that to Mona, and she's going to send out a bill to the franchisees.
Yeah, because I was trying to recoup.
And we can.
The fees that we spent on the Comcast deal for the water tank. I figured
Excellent.
we should try to recoup that. So whatever Mr. Cole thinks we can, conservatively get back, that would be excellent.
Right. And then, so one of the other questions we got was regarding the bond language. Then currently there's a $20K bond requirement. So that the language that's in the contract requires the bond to be continuously maintained. And so the comment was that the bond should account for future costs. So, I think that's something that was talked about when we negotiated the franchise agreement. But obviously it's up to the council if that's something that you guys feel like needs to be rehashed, then that's a possibility. Obviously we just have to take it back to Comcast and kind of work back through those issues.
All right, and so my point about that was cost overruns over a 20-year period, which is what this term of this franchise agreement is. Seems to me that 20,000 is a little light for a construction bond, because even 10 years from now, that 20,000 may not even come close to what the cost would be for construction. And so not knowing what all of that may mean, whether they're digging up, let's say, 10 miles of roadway or any 2-mile stretch, for example, that's probably 20,000 isn't gonna cut it. So 20,000 may be fine today, but in year 20, when this agreement is sort of expiring, if they have to start digging up roads and we need to collect a bond, 20 grand doesn't do anything for us. So I don't know what the correct number is, but I called it out because I just, the math doesn't add up of what can happen over time. I mean, just using water tank cost overruns and systems like that, they happen, right?
Right.
And those were hundreds of thousands of dollars.
COVID happens.
I wasn't thinking of COVID, but okay, COVID happens.
Yep.
Normally what similar franchise agreements, what typically is, what's the standard for this type of bond? Is it graduated? Is it
Yeah.
flat?
So, I think what I am used to seeing, franchisees don't like, and that is that you come in under the typical road cut permit requirements that require a separate bond for each project, and it's a percentage of the project costs. And where they're doing work, throughout the year, they like to have a single bond that can get posted and not post them every project. And I understand why that's real efficient for them, and also has some great efficiency for your staff. But those then are based on the expense of the project that's being permitted each time. So I guess that's a non-answer, frankly, to your question, but it kind of describes what I think I'm used to seeing.
And we are going to bring a ordinance to you called a road degradation fee. And so that's going to apply to companies like Comcast that do degrade our roads. They'll have to pay a road degradation fee. And we'll bringing that to you probably in less than 2 months.
Okay, but in the meantime, if we were to pass this as is, it'd be 20,000. You've seen it higher?
Certainly think right to question 20,000, whether that's going to be sufficient even today.
Well, it's going to be sufficient.
Right. So I think we need to, and we also have to read this whole thing, don't we?
No,
We're done with that.
Okay.
Don't have to do that.
You were ready.
No, I'm gonna be sick and I need to excuse myself.
Okay.
So then I guess the next question on that would be if we decide that 20,000 is not enough,
That's what I was getting at. How much is enough?
Yeah.
well, I wasn't gonna ask how much is enough as much as I was gonna say is how much back. This has got to go back through this big loop again, right?
Well, we'd have to come up with a number, and a number that you're comfortable with, and a number that Comcast is comfortable with, and we can talk about that and propose something and bring it back to council.
Mr. Tharnish, you have any input on, I mean, you're in charge of Public Works. So if a utility provider is digging up our streets, what are we talking about here for the cost for the dig and repair?
I'm pretty sure it would depend on if they're going parallel with the road or are they crossing? Because most of the time they're going parallel, they're gonna be within the right of way, but we always encourage them to be outside the edge of pavement. But if they're coming down a road with their sidewalk, curb and gutter and pavement, they're gonna be tearing up stuff as they dig. They tend to bore a lot of things and they subcontract everything out anyway.
So give us a swag per mile. Because trenching when I was in the trenching business for internet stuff, it was between 20 and 25,000 per mile to trench, to lay fiber or cable. That's just trenching. We're talking about redoing. I mean, they're doing the same thing. They're trenching for new lines. So what is it today?
But they're not, most of them are not trenching though, right? They're boring. Isn't that?
It depends. I've seen it done both ways.
Yeah, okay.
If it's a heavily traveled road or there's not much room, they'll typically bore it. If it's out away from everything and there's room to do things, then chances are they'll open trench because it's cheaper.
Okay.
But per mile, I don't know. I would have to give it a very wide swag of. It's got to be in the 40 mile. If they're going to go the entire mile and be chewing up pavement the entire.
Mitch,
Should be
I
more
think
than that.
to your point, I'm wondering if it's possible to have a graduated, so every 5 years it goes up, because to your point, in 20 years, even if, okay, let's say we say 50,000, even in 20 years, it's not gonna be 50,000. So I think to your larger point, can we do a graduated, every 5 years it goes up X? I don't know if that's even possible or legal or.
I think it's certainly possible and it's certainly legal.
But what is Comcast's appetite for continuing this negotiation?
If they want to continue operating in the town, they sort of don't have much choice,
Okay,
right? I mean, I don't think they're just going to pull out and just shut everybody off, but they need to sign the franchise agreement at some point.
So I do want to just jump in. So we do have Gary Amella of Comcast is on the line.
Oh.
So Gary, I don't know if you have any thoughts on this or willing to speak at this moment, but if you do, just please let us know.
Yeah, hi, everyone. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I mean, obviously, we appreciate serving the town of Monument, and Javon and I, if there was something that we need to renegotiate, we'd be open to renegotiating.
Well, thank you for that. I think you understand our concern, right? With construction costs and a 20-year period, the $20,000 amount just seems very low on what could happen 10, 15 years from now.
Yes, I understand what you're saying.
Okay, well, then I'm all for Bob working with Comcast to get a better, more reasonable number. And I would look to see about continuing this if there's anybody who would like to, unless there's other things to discuss. This isn't a public hearing item, right, Mr. Cole? So then I would look for a motion to continue. And Mr. Cole, how long do you think you would need until?
We try to get back July 15.
Okay, so a motion to continue this ordinance to July 15th.
Make a motion to continue this resolution 11/2024 to July 15th.
second.
A motion and a second. Hang on, Mr. Cole, something? Okay. Ms. Erickson.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic.
Yes.
Thank you.
Right, that motion passes 7-0.
Any other issue? Good to hear that now.
If otherwise you're fairly comfortable, that's fine. We won't renegotiate.
The other points that I made were more town staff related, just to provide us the reports from any of the franchisees that we have in the town, just so
Right.
we can see what kind of revenues coming in
And
specifically related to that.
Mona provides those in the monthly reports.
She
and the
does.
quarter.
I
Yep,
just need
they're in
to
there.
educate me then.
Yep. I think I sent you an email on that today.
Oh, okay.
Yep.
Between meetings and dinner and, okay, perfect. I'll get back to that tomorrow. All right, moving on, ordinance number 12-2024, an ordinance approving a final PUD for Lost Island. And we've got Dan, who did you say was going to be presenting?
Julius Durrell from Baseline.
Okay,
Hi, welcome, or thank you for having me. Can you hear me okay?
yes.
Awesome. Okay, I'm Julie Esterl, Baseline Corporation. We're located here in Golden, Colorado. And this is final PUD for Lost Island 2. Next slide. Great. The applicant is John Olson, and I believe that he planned to attend just to answer questions. So I can't see if he's there in the audience, but I believe
He's
that
here.
he is supposed to be there. Great, thank you. The property is located on the Connexus Phase 2 and 3 PUD south of 2nd Street and kind of between I-25 and Old Denver Road. So you can see on the location map there. The request is for a final plat for, well, is this the plat already? Are we doing the PUD first? Have we got the right? I think this might be just a little bit of a typo on this slide. This is for the PUD, for the Connexus filing 3. So we can go to the next. Oh, the Planning Commission for both of these items, both the plat and the PUD, was held on May 5th. Go ahead to the next slide.
Okay, so this is filing 2, correct? Not filing 3. At least
So
that's what I have on our agenda, Lost Island 2. Is that?
So there's a series of numbers associated with these two projects. So the plat is filing 3. Lost Island is Lost Island 2 because it's the second property that Lost Island is going to be located at.
We're discussing only a PUD tonight, filing
So
2, correct?
we are doing both the PUD and the plat. And according to the agenda that I have in front of me,
The agenda item does not say we are doing anything other than a PUD.
So.
the
Or-
item
or
under
this-
resolution,
Yeah,
the next
first
item, I'm going to
resolution.
be presenting 2 items.
But this is an ordinance we're going over.
Yes.
So are we only discussing the ordinance, or is this getting combined into an ordinance and a resolution? Because that'll be confusing.
It is confusing and I apologize because I got slipped up because that first slide mentioned a final plat, but the ordinance is for the PUD, which is basically zoning. The resolution is for the plat, which is the subdivision of the land.
But we're only discussing the PUD ordinance right now.
Right now is just the
Okay.
PUD ordinance. Yes.
Thank you.
Apologies. Yep. Okay, so let's see, the property is vacant. And there's vacant property on all sides of this property as well. They're all zoned PUD as part of this original Connexus Phase 2 and 3 PUD. And I think that discusses all of the zoning and land use. We can go to the next slide. The proposed development is going to be Lost Island 2, and it's going to be developed through this Lost Island 2 final PUD, which is a final PUD that comes after the preliminary Connexus Phase 2 and 3 PUD, which was approved can't remember when, it's in one of the slides in 2022. So the property is going to propose a 4 18-hole miniature golf course, outdoor site, indoor playroom with inflatables, a ninja gym, and party rooms. There is going to be a proposed phase 2, which is on the southern portion of the property you can see there that's open. That's proposed at a later phase for a water park. And there are 316 parking spaces included for this site, which will accommodate both the phase 1 and phase 2 development. Next slide. So here are the exterior building elevations for the proposed indoor activities. Exterior building materials are consistent with what the town has in their code and guidelines. Black metal roof, black canopy, wood grain metal paneling, metal and wood grain posts, dark gray stucco, some manufactured stone, and then the accessory structures, which include a golf operations check-in building and a bar, are woodboard and beam materials. Next slide. So these are the compliance review results. The zoning is PUD, as I mentioned. It's under the Connexus phases 2 and 3 preliminary PUD. And then once approved, it will also fall under this Lost Island 2 final PUD. So the land use is permitted by the preliminary and by the preliminary PUD. The setbacks conform with the PUD. The utilities are all accommodated for with will serve letters that are in the file. Oops, not quite yet. Thank you. Access and circulation comply with applicable regulations. There are 2 access points to the property, both one on the north and one on the south. As I mentioned before, parking is currently exceeds what's required for the proposed phase 1 uses. And when phase 2 is comes for development review, that parking will be reevaluated to confirm that it continues to meet the requirements for both uses. Lighting conforms to the land development code. Landscaping is in conformance with the PUD. There was a master sign plan submitted that was reviewed with this PUD application, and it conforms with the sign code. Sign permits will be required in addition to that initial sign review. Architectural design we kind of looked at before, that conforms to the PUD. Open space was provided not only with the original preliminary PUD and plat based on some tracks that were provided to be reserved for open space, but also about an acre and a half or more of open space was also provided with just this lot and this development. And the preliminary PUD notes have all been addressed. Okay, next slide. So the review criteria are as follows. As I mentioned before, May 8th, the Planning Commission held their public hearing and unanimously found that the proposed final PUD for Lost Island 2 final PUD conforms with the following criteria. Conforms with the underlying approved preliminary PUD. It provides adequate on-site vehicular and pedestrian safety and accessibility. Complies with landscaping and open space standards. And it complies with building architectural design standards because it is compatible with the surrounding properties. Provides adequate off-street parking, and it fits within the context of the planned land use development. So our recommendation is a motion approving ordinance 12-2024, granting approval of the Lost Island 2 final planned unit development. And that concludes this presentation, I believe. can take questions, and the applicant can also answer any questions that you have.
Okay, is there any other presentation from the applicant, or is this the only one?
Mayor, there are no other presentations tonight for this case.
Okay, questions from the council? I don't know if
I do. I have several questions for the applicant or Julie, one of the two.
okay, well, the applicant's here, so we can
Yeah.
have him come up and introduce himself.
This one?
It's on.
Okay. My name is John Olson. I'm with Urban Landscapes. I served as the planner for this project.
Okay. On the application, I believe that the building height was 36 feet. Is that, those are the tallest buildings?
That sounds accurate. Yep.
And what is our maximum height capacity on the west side?
On that side?
Yeah.
A
Remember that?
lot higher.
I remember the conversation.
It's 60 feet for retail.
Yeah.
If you consider this retail.
Yeah, that's what I was, that was what I was leaning into. What are we considering this as? Office or retail or
Well,
warehouse?
60
So-
would be the next step up, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can answer that if you'd like. The actual use is considered industrial, and outdoor and indoor recreation and sports facilities are classified as an industrial use within the preliminary PUD.
Which I think is 75 feet.
And I read a couple of things in the notes on the design plans. Question is, what are the hours of operation going to be for the facility or facilities?
If the applicant's speaking, I can't hear him online.
Oh, we thought the mic was turned on. Hang on.
No, I'm here. I'm hearing him speak.
Oh,
I'm online too.
Yeah, I
You-
couldn't hear.
No, we could hear everything else but him.
hang on.
I think he maybe needs to just speak closer. I don't know.
How about now?
Better.
That
Better?
works.
Okay. I'll reintroduce myself then real quick. My name is John Olson. I'm with Urban Landscapes and we served as the planner on this project. And hours of operation was the question.
Yes.
As I recall, it's it opens right around 9 or 10 a.m. and it'll be done by 10 p.m.
Okay, because I'm hoping I'm not getting the two confused here, because they were talking about the dark sky and for the lighting.
Yep.
Because that's going to be a lot of lighting at night. So dark skies is dark, following dark sky procedure. So that's why I was asking about the closing. And then just to confirm about the hours of operation, because I was again reading all the notes and I was kind of bouncing between the two, and I was talking about that serving alcohol, eventually that's the goal. And
Yep.
what time you're going to be serving alcohol until. as
Yeah, and I
compared
think
to what time
that one's
closing
9
is.
p.m. These were all, so the owner is not here this evening, but these were all discussed in the planning commission
Yeah.
as well. And I believe it's 9 p.m. is that last call.
And then I counted either 77 or 80 something evergreens that are going around the perimeter.
Okay.
Is there a specific type of evergreen, or why was an evergreen picked vice like ponderosa or something else? Is a question for screening purposes.
The ponderosa pine is an evergreen tree.
It just says evergreen on there, so I was
Okay.
just wondering because there's multiple types of.
Yeah, it's broken down in
Evergreen
there. I
and-
think there's, as I recall, there's some Colorado spruce, some blue spruce, maybe, fir in there, but,
Okay.
yeah. That's all on, there's a few sheets of that in the landscape plan that are included.
Okay, yeah, and then.
Sorry, I should have brought a big packet here that I could have rolled
Yeah.
out.
No, I was just looking at the design plan and I started counting So then lastly,
Can I add
we're-
one thing about that? Sorry to interrupt, but the plan sheets do say evergreen, but if you look at the plant schedule, it includes the botanical and common names, so all of the trees and shrubs that are going to be planted. So they have white fir, let's see, what are the other, a Black Hill spruce, a Fat Albert blue spruce, Colorado spruce, Indian pine, Austrian pine, and southwestern white pine.
yeah, I was just looking for what
Yeah.
type to understand the growth and then for screening purposes.
Yeah, absolutely. No, there's a good mix.
Yeah.
And while we're talking about the landscape, I can tell you that this developer, I don't know if he likes being called a developer, entrepreneur, is very sensitive to that. So we have very low water use plant material. You'll notice that there's no bluegrass on this site. So we've stayed away from all the high water use. It's native seed and low water use plantings.
Okay, great. And then last question, I'll turn it over to somebody else. Traffic study, when was it? You guys are using the 2020 traffic study?
I can respond. So there was a 2022 traffic impact study that was prepared for the Connexus Phase 2 and 3 preliminary PUD. In addition to that, there was transportation, the LSC transportation consultants also prepared a traffic technical memorandum for Lost Island 2, which was dated October 3rd, 2023. I believe that was included in the Planning Commission packet and should have also been included in your packet.
Yes. And so on that note, with the overall Connexus plan, so just to avoid a little bit of confusion, so Old Denver Road remains, and it had a new name. Somebody mentioned the Planning Commission. That's what I keep calling it, is there's a new Denver Road, new Old Denver Road. So the new Old Denver Road comes into the east of it towards I-25. So it actually adds some capacity to the overall area.
Okay. All right, thanks.
I just have one follow-up on the lights. I noticed that there's a notation that says that you're subject to the lighting during operations for the sports complex. Julie, can you confirm that ceases once they close and those lights come down so that they can be compliant with dark skies, or are those going to be on all night?
I believe that it was the intention that and so this came to me a little bit late, but there were comments from previous staff about the property needing to comply with the Illuminating Engineering Society of North America standards for specialty sports. And so that is just for during operations.
Okay, good. Okay.
Yeah, and they do get turned down in the evening, and they're all down lighting, and the only reason for the athletic piece of it is we want to make sure that people are safe when they're out playing mini golf, but not contributing to the dark sky, or not the dark sky, but light pollution in the overall area.
It made sense to me that you were beholden to that rule during operations.
Yep.
For safety's sake. But I wanted to make sure that then it reverts back to the dark skies.
Yeah,
dark skies.
absolutely.
Awesome. Thank you. That's it.
I got a couple. So the new Old Denver Road. So this can't open until that road is complete. So what do you know about that?
Well,
So
but he's going to try to open this place at some point, correct?
yeah, so I'll tell you what Keith, the owner of Lost Island 2, what he had said at the last one was, hey, if we can get this open right now and just use a dirt road to get to it, let's go, let's do it. Ultimately, it's really up to the developer, who Eric is here as well with Connexus that represents the developer, to have that road come into place. And my understanding is that there's more land users that need to come in before we can get that going economically. Did I sum up that?
Yeah, because I think the PUD states that before any COs are issued, that the road needs to be completed.
Right.
Okay.
Yeah, and so that's it's a little bit problematic in order to get this open because, he was ready to open this thing up back in March.
Right. Yeah, everybody asks about the dinosaurs. And then the water park, that hasn't been designed yet. This is just a future use.
So we had a lot of discussions about the water park, and that the water park has been somewhat designed. It hasn't gone to that construction level of things. And that got held out for economics. Right now, they need to be able to go in pencil so they can get this open. And Keith's very confident that, 72 holes of mini golf, which is awesome, and almost an acre building of indoor, gym and ninja course, that he's confident that he can get those open really soon. So once those are going and getting a little bit of cash flow for him, his full intention is to have that water park though. And I know there's a lot of excitement about that. We had some meetings with the adjacent neighborhoods a year ago, probably in this room. And that was something that they were really excited about having. So that was one of the questions of planning commission from one of the residents. We're really excited for phase 2.
Well, and on that, because, this will be a conversation amongst residents for sure, because we always talk about, water resources.
Yeah.
And, I guess from the good point of view, this is being serviced by Triview, who's about ready to have some renewable sources. But how does this water park work as far as, I guess, it's not really designed, but evaporation issues and things like that. Is this park like a foot deep, or is this
No, it's a
feet deep? Or?
there's slides that go into it, so it's certainly not just foot deep. I don't know the exact numbers on it, but it's probably at least 4 feet deep. That's typical pool for having slides come into it. In terms of water use, the initial water use for the season of getting the water in, that's the big cost. But after that, it's cycled through and recycled all the way around, and then I'm sure it has the chemical balances that I'm not going to speak to that happen in that process.
No need to do that.
Once the water is there, it's pretty efficient. I actually don't know, because it comes to my head now, do they refill it every year? That might be one of your questions. I know a lot of people, a lot of apartments and everything else will keep pools water in them all year just to avoid that cost. So.
Right. And this may be a question for Julie, but this is a part of a system in Connexus where there's not any individual detention areas on this. So at some point, there's going to need to be detention. When do we trigger that, or do you know?
Yeah, so we did address that in the staff report. There is a regional detention facility planned for, that's going to be owned and maintained by the Triview Metro District. But for this plan, there was this note added to the final PUD that indicates that coordination will be required with the developer of Connexus and the project for an interim solution to handle the offsite flows until Lot 3 develops. So,
If I may interrupt, this is Eric Jekyll with Shuck Chapman.
Great,
So
thanks.
Sure. So there's 2 regional detention ponds that need to be built for this development. The south pond is the largest pond, which will serve everything except for Lot 3. So this is part of Lot 4. So that pond will go in prior to the development of this lot. And it goes in with the construction of New Old Denver Road.
Okay. So, this has become an issue. So I just want to bring it to the forefront because we've had some discussions with the Air Force Academy, and last year proved that our detention facilities weren't working as well as we had hoped. So I imagine you will be in contact with the Air Force Academy as well to try to engineer this so that we don't impact them.
They were actually one of the referral agencies. So we've worked with them months, if not years ago.
Okay. All right. I just want to make sure that we're on the same page. That's all I had, really.
Councilmember Romanello, do you have any questions for the?
I do not.
Okay. Okay, then if there are no other questions, there is specific language I thought I saw in,
This is
Well-
a public hearing.
this is a public hearing item?
Yes.
Okay, well, then, before we do anything, we will see if the public would like to speak for or against the formation of this, this final PUD for Lost Island 2. Is there anybody here in the room that would like to speak for or against this? Okay, how about online? Will, is there anybody online?
Yeah, I'm looking to see. One moment. Can you unshare your screen? Thank you. I see no one online.
Okay, then we will bring it back to the council for further discussion or a motion.
I'll make a motion to approve ordinance number 12-2024, an ordinance approving a final PUD for Lost Island 2.
We have a motion.
I'll second.
We have a second. Ms. Erickson.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimpel,
Yes.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes?
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. We are now moving on to resolution 31-2024, resolution approving a final plat known as Connexus Filing 3, a replat of Connexus Filings 2, Lot 4 for Lost Island 2. Mr. Ungelleider, who will be providing us the commentary on this one?
It's all Julie's again.
Great, thank you. So my camera's been disabled, which is fine. Okay. I didn't know if you wanted to see me or not. No worries. Okay, so this is the subdivision and final plat that goes along with the PUD that you guys just approved. So Connexus Filing 2 is basically that area that's hatched. And it subdivided, originally it subdivided 4 lots and 5 tracts. And lot 4 of filing 2 is the subject of this filing 3. And so what they're doing is taking lot 4 and subdividing it into 2 lots. So that's just a little overview on that. The applicant is the same, John Olson, property owner, the same, Connexus LLC, same location. And this is a request for the approval of the Connexus filing number 3. And again, the Plan Commission reviewed this and recommended approval on May 8th. Great, thank you. So this is same slide that we saw for the PUD. The properties surrounding, including this property, are all vacant, and they're all zoned PUD except for the interstate, which is located to the east. Next slide. So this represents the original, that kind of bold and dashed exterior line was Connexus filing 2, and was also the boundary for the Connexus phases 2 and 3 preliminary PUD. And so that green shaded area with the red outline, that's lot 4. Go ahead to the next slide. And then this is the proposed Connexus filing number 3, which takes lot 4 and divides it into 2 lots. Lot 1 is 14 acres and lot 2 is 16.8 acres. The proposed Lost Island 2 PUD that you just approved will be developed on lot 1 of this subdivision. The review criteria for this final plat. Again, the Planning Commission voted unanimously to recommend approval on May 8th, 2024. And the criteria for this final plat are conformity with the comprehensive plan and other town plans, which in the Planning Commission packet was outlined with some more detail on that. It provides a predictable lot pattern, it's compatible with adjacent properties. It provides for adequate light, air, open space, and indoor and outdoor recreation amenities. It provides access from Old Denver Road and has shared access points with adjacent properties to the north and south. And it provides for water conservation efforts needed in support of phase 2 site development for the water park. Next slide are the additional review criteria. The plat conforms with recommendations regarding potential natural disasters for the area. It complies with all applicable county, state, federal, and local provisions. Does not interfere with the preservation and conservation of any vegetation. And it conforms with the Connexus Phase 2 and 3 preliminary PUD approved in 2022. So our recommendation tonight is motion approving resolution number 31-2024, resolution approving a final plat for Connexus filing number 3.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Is there anybody else, Mr. Unglider, that's going to be presenting?
No, sir.
Okay. Questions from the council? Okay.
Question for either you, Julie, or the presenter? Did you still have the microphone? Yeah.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so we're basically splitting the lot into 2.
Correct.
And what is the purpose of that?
Purpose-
What's the ultimate goal here? What are we striving for?
I think I'd say 2 goals on that. We only needed 14 acres for the total of the water park and our uses of the overall place. And so that's mainly economics, right? So that way they don't have to buy the whole thing. And then second, I think, more users over there is always a good thing for a commercial business. So having that ability to have Connexus come up with another user right there is great.
Yeah, I'll jump in that real quick because when it was originally the preliminary PUD, they had set up zones for specific uses when Connexus came and sat down with the citizens in order to do this. So this is on industrial property that was 30 acres set aside for that. So in essence, this is taking half of the industrial uses out of this site.
Okay, so it's gonna remain commercial, industrial.
Well, it's an industrial zone part of this Connexus site, but there was 30 acres there and now there's only going to be 15 that can be used for light industrial. All the heavy uses were taken out.
Or potentially a restaurant or something else that.
Yeah, not in this area,
No, okay.
but it could be warehouses or it could be some other use that's allowed. I don't know what all the uses are, but.
Thank you.
Other questions? Questions? Councilmember Romanello, questions?
Going once, going twice? No.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so we will open it up to anybody here, town hall, that would like to speak for or against this resolution. Okay, seeing none. Will, anybody online?
Mike on your side. Speak.
Well, can you please identify who you are because your name does not show up?
Hi, Chad Smith. On the Monument Planning Commission. I just wanted to point out, and I'm not sure, so forgive me if I'm incorrect. But on our agenda for the May 8th meeting, the final PUD was identified as number 2. I looked through the packet and I see that in the packet it does say number 3, PUD number 3. So I just want to make sure we voted on the correct thing before the council goes ahead and moves forward with this.
Mr. Unglider, do you have anything you can add to that?
There were no changes to the packet.
So on the agenda, I just want to make sure the vote was correct for the planning commission, because on the agenda, and I can't see what the motion would be. I don't have that in front of me, but on the agenda, it did identify the final PUD as number 2, Lost Island number 2. And I see within the packet,
the name of the business, I'm sorry, the name of the business is Lost Island 2. The development is
filing number is
Connexus
number
filing
3.
number 3.
Got it. I just want to make sure we voted the correct way because like
Appreciate
I said,
that.
the agenda doesn't say PUD filing 3, it says 2.
Right, because the PUD and the plat are different. PUD
Yes.
is Lost Island 2 PUD. The plat is Connexus filing number 3.
Yes, so in the agenda for the planning commission meeting, it's a resolution for final plat known as Connexus Lost Island 2, and then an ordinance for final PUD known as Connexus Lost Island 2. I'm just not sure, I'm not clear on whether that was filing 2 or 3. So I just would ask that was confirmed.
Right. The PUD doesn't have a filing. The filing language only goes with the plat.
Got it.
All right, thank you for that. Anybody else online?
No, sir.
All right, so we'll bring it back to the council for further discussion. Questions for the applicant or a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 31, 2024. Resolution approving a final plat known as Connexus filing number 3, a replat Connexus filing number 2, lot 4 for Lost Island 2.
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson?
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Abbott,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimple.
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Thanks, Julie.
All right, that motion passes 7-0. Next up, Resolution 32, 2024, resolution approving a final plat known as Willow Springs Ranch, filing number 2. Mr. Unglider, who's?
Lauren Richardson is online to present this one tonight.
Lauren, we cannot hear you. Hold on one second.
Mic is enabled, but you need to unmute on your side.
Can you guys hear me now?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
I apologize for that. But good evening, Board of Trustees. Tonight I will present the Willow Springs Ranch filing number 2 final plat on behalf of staff. We can go to the next slide. Thank you. The project is located north of Forest Lakes Drive, west of Willow Springs Ranch, filing number 1. The applicant is Drexel Barrel and Company. I believe the representative for the applicant might be there. And Dan can correct me if I'm wrong on that.
There's somebody raising their hand here.
Oh, perfect. Okay. The property owner is Willow Springs Ranch LLC, and the request is the approval of filing Willow Springs Ranch filing number 2 final plat. We can go to the next one. All right. So the surrounding zoning and land use. The subject property is currently vacant. It is zoned PUD, so you can see from the image there. North is vacant. South is the Forest Lake subdivision. East is the Willow Springs Ranch filing number 1. And west is the vacant 5 acres that is going to be the Lewis Palmer School District number 38 school. Right. Okay. A little bit of history for this area. The Willow Springs Ranch preliminary final plat PD site plan major amendment. Just want to make sure everybody knows this is not related to this. Sounds like it, but it's not. The Willow Springs Ranch filing number 2 was approved. Final plat was approved in 2022. Unfortunately, it was not recorded and was expired. So therefore, the applicant had to come back to the town for that. And then Willow Springs Ranch filing number 1, as I mentioned, and Willow Springs Ranch preliminary final PD site plan, which was approved in 2020. Okay, next slide. All right. So this proposed final plat has 27 single-family residential lots that do range from 5,465 square feet to 11,488 square feet. It does have trail access from one of the tract A, which is also shown on the preliminary final PD site plan. And then, as you can see, the little arrow down there says the roadway access to the future school and Forest Lake Drive, the future restricted access right in and right out. Next slide. Okay. On May 8th, the Planning Commission did hold a public hearing and unanimously found the proposed final plat for Willow Springs Ranch number 2 does conform with the following criteria. It does conform with the town's comprehensive plan and other applicable town plans. It provides a harmonious development and lot pattern compatible with adjacent properties. It provides adequate light, air, open space, and indoor and outdoor recreation amenities. It provides adequate access to all lots and tracts proposed in the subdivision. It provides adequate, safe, and efficient public improvements, utilities, and community facilities and service capacity for the subdivision. Next. We've got the rest of those. It does conform with the recommendations regarding potential natural disasters for the area. It complies with all county, state, federal, and local provisions. It provides the preservation and conservation of unique or distinctive natural and scenic areas and views, recognizing the irreplaceable character of such resources and their impact to the quality of life and monument. It provides for the preservation and conservation of significant stands of vegetation, and it does conform with the Willow Springs Ranch preliminary plat, or I'm sorry, it should be preliminary PD, preliminary/final PD site plan approved in 2020. Next one. So a recommendation, a motion approving resolution number 32-2024 is a resolution approving a final plat for Willow Springs Ranch filing 2, based on the finding that the proposed final plat is in conformance with the review and approval criteria as outlined in the Town of Monuments Land Development Code, section 18.02.260, with the following condition. At the time of design of the future school site for Lewis Palmer School District number 38, the Channel Island Drive access from Forest Lakes Drive shall be evaluated and may require conversion to right in, right out. And if such intersection or access improvements are required, then the applicant and/or the Willow Springs Ranch Metropolitan District shall be responsible for the cost and the design and construction. And that concludes this presentation. Can answer any questions. Thank you.
Any questions for from the applicant or to Lauren here.
Just a quick one. I tried to read the lot, sizes. Are we, what lot sizes are we talking ish? Like half acre?
Half acre?
I don't know.
That's the whole division is a half acre.
Oh, is it?
No,
Okay, so they're like
they're really small.
Okay, I can't-
5,400 square feet up till like 11,000.
okay, okay, thank you. Okay, thank you.
So this Channel Island Drive will be, what kind of, the right in, right out is for future.
Right.
What's it gonna be before the future? Full motion?
Yeah. I'll have to ask the, if the applicant can answer that question. Is Tim there? Wonderful.
Good evening. Is that working? Okay. Tim McConnell with Drexel Burrell, prepared the plat. Try to answer your question. Lauren covered everything pretty well, but I say this plat, nothing has really changed. Same plat that was brought forth back in 2022, 2 years ago, it was previously approved. But I can answer your.
Yeah, so Channel Island Drive, is that the only ingress and egress for that group of homes?
At this point, correct. And it would be a full movement access initially.
Which Short Prairie Court, what is that butting up? Is that a fire gate? Is there a road there? Cause I can't tell that there's a road.
It would be barricaded initially. Then once the right of way that's identified there on the left-hand side of the map.
Right.
We worked through that with El Paso County primarily. They wanted access to the Ward property to the north eventually. So that right of way, we dedicated that when we did the work for the school district 38 as well and platted that right of way for the school district and also vacated the old Forest Lakes Drive. You can see on the far left-hand side of the screen. So that the school parcel, instead of two separate parcels, it's all one property now, added to 5 acres. Since I think it's closer to 14 or 15 acres in total now. So that future right of way that the pointer is on would either be utilized by Ward property if it's ever developed or the school district if they ever develop. They would utilize that public right of way and have to build the roadway on the west-hand side of this development. So at that point in time, Short Prairie would connect to that roadway as well.
So the schools, the future school site, if it were to be built, the full motion of Channel Island and Forest Lakes Drive would then become restricted.
Would be restricted to a right in, right out. They didn't want conflicting movements that close to another full movement intersection, and that is actually part of our conditions with our county access permit, because Forest Lakes Drive is a county roadway. So roadways would be town of monument.
So that right away right there, that's on the west side of Short Prairie, that would become a full
That would
motion.
become a full movement.
Okay, full
When
movement.
and if it is developed in the future.
Okay.
You're not seriously saying there's going to be two roads 100 feet apart, are you?
That's why the condition was placed on there to make that one a right in, right out. Correct. There wouldn't be conflicting travel lanes. That was a condition of the county.
But we're not in the county now, so.
No.
That,
But we're
is that,
connecting to their roadway.
is that school in the town or is that in the county?
It's in this town.
County.
Is it in the county?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I thought that was part of Willow Springs.
That was not annexed with Willow Springs, the 5 acre carve out. It's left out.
Okay. I think those were my questions. Any questions?
I have questions when you
You
get
have
back.
questions? Go ahead.
Okay, so the first question is, this is the last platted residential area in Willow Springs, correct?
Correct.
So there's nothing else more than this.
No.
Okay. Well, my initial take on these two roads being 100 feet apart is I don't see how that's practical on Forest Lakes Drive, quite frankly. I mean, I'm not an engineer, but 100 feet apart, that doesn't even seem like that should be something to be considered. So but it's in the county. I can't say anything about it, but I'm gonna bring it up because to me, it just doesn't seem like it in any way it could be safe. Especially with the way that the traffic moves down Forest Lakes Drive. I mean, it's already a little bit difficult getting out. There's so many blind spots as it is.
Yeah, our layout hasn't changed. We're in conformance with the PUD. I say this was a county request at the time when we brought this plat back. And there was potential activity for development on the ward property and also with the school property.
Yeah, it just doesn't seem practical to me. And we're starting to deal with, we're having some concerns, or not just me. I mean, I can't speak for the rest of the people here as far as, fire exiting out of Forest Lakes. Hay Creek's got some stuff going on, this and other things. So, and Baptist is starting to get kind of loaded up with Falcon Commerce Center still not really fully developed for sure. So, somehow we got to pay attention to that. And, I'm not dumping this on you because it's not your fault, but, I'm just bringing it up. But my concern with this is the two right of ways that close together.
Yeah, because if the school were to get built, the right going towards the right out is going to be heading towards the mountain.
Right.
And so that road is definitely blocked off. So everybody's going to be going up through the development, and it'll, whatever that future road is, it'll become congested along with all the traffic west of there trying to get out. Because there's a subdivision, ward subdivision that is county, obviously. Are those our 5 lots or?
Currently, I believe that is.
Okay, so then they
Be the answer.
probably could, additional routes for escape would go north over towards the Mitchell area. Rickenbacker.
Basically, yeah.
Well, Rickenbacker's not a road. I don't even know. That is not a road.
That's part of the overall Willow Springs development with the PD. We did make the connection from Cynthies and Mitchell down to Baptist, so that is another egress route for the west side of.
Right.
County.
Okay, other questions?
Can you speak to your knowledge about the school itself? Like,
I could, as of right now, I don't think they have anything on the books for constructing a school at this point in time.
It's not really related.
Yeah.
well,
Sorry.
I'm driving down to it.
I
Well, I'm
understand.
driving with the traffic. That's all I'm getting to is the turns and the traffic and everyone lining up to kind of, what are they gonna do? A circle to pick up and drop off type deal and then add to the residential stuff.
Ms. Fiorito?
No,
Oh,
good. Thank you.
Yep, Councilmember Romanello. Still on with us?
I am here. No, I don't have any questions or comments at this time, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so anybody here like to speak for or against this particular item? How about online?
No one online there.
Okay, then we'll bring it back for any further discussion or questions or motion.
Yeah, I'd like to have a little bit of a discussion.
Okay.
Just to get some things out on the record. And this isn't impacting what I'm thinking about this particular project, but in the scope of things so that we can use this as future evidence. So we've kind of lost sight of our comprehensive plan on a lot of things. And in a full disclosure, I voted against Willow Springs when I was on the planning commission, just because of the lot sizes. Because the comp plan talks about large lot residential at 2.5 acre sites, for which we have none. And it says located along the periphery, western and northern edges of the town. We talk a lot about diversity in housing, but there is no diversity of housing when there's nothing other than small lots and multifamily. And because of it, we've compromised the plan. And in this case, it's starting to become a potential problem for fire escape. And you know, we can't control what goes on in El Paso County, but we can control what goes on at Monument. And one thing I would like to just also bring up is, you know, I take this position seriously, and when we have these come up, I'd like to be able to see, we used to have online where we had folders of the development projects and included comments from other agencies, and we don't have that anymore. So I'd like to see if we can get that back on. If there's some kind of legal issue that we can't do that, that's one thing, but otherwise, I'd like to see what other people have to say about these projects. And that's my soapbox for today.
I would like to reiterate, since that came up via request to have access to the development projects that were in flight, and there was a statement made about things that were queryable. And that's why that some of the things have been taken down, but the entire development folder is now missing. So the problem with that is not only can we not see it, but when these issues come up for the public to have an open hearing, they can't see it either. And so I don't know that it's so much a question to ask whether it can be put back up, more of a demand. How else are the public going to see the documents that become public as soon as a applicant submits a development project to the town? It's a public record at that point. Now, I understand that there's a process that goes through back and forth, and maybe during the early stages of a development that gets put in, there's the agencies that need time to respond and they don't get posted. But at some point, all the documents are public. And so they've been down for, it's been a few weeks. Have not been able to see what anybody else has said, including the other agencies, to Councilmember King's point. So if there's something that we need to be told about from a legal perspective that allows them to be kept down, fine, we just need to, the council needs to hear it. But if there is no reason, then the expectation is the documents that are legally allowed to be shown are put back up while the development is in flight, so people can see it. Anybody else? Okay, did we already asked online about this one? So I don't have any other comments. Then the other question would be if there is a motion to for this resolution.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 32-2024. Resolution approving a final plat known as Willow Springs Ranch filing number 2.
I'll second.
You have a motion and a second. Ms. Erickson.
Councilmember Chronic,
Yes.
Councilmember Romanello,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem King,
Yes.
Councilmember Ave,
Yes.
Councilmember Fiorito,
Yes.
Mayor LaKind,
Yes.
Councilmember Kimball.
Yes.
Thank you.
That motion passes 7-0. Next up, public comments for items that are not on the agenda. Individuals attending in person may raise their hand to indicate their desire to comment. Individuals attending via Teams may raise their hand digitally to comment via connected devices. Please lower your hand when finished with your comments. Comments are limited to 3 minutes. Do we have anybody here in Town Hall that would like to provide public comment? Come on down, and if you could, please fill out the little sheet there with who you are. Do you have a mic? Yeah. Thank you.
My name is Laura Hoskins and I work at the Valero. Okay, I work here. My husband has brain tumor. I have 3 children. 2 of them stay with me, one's 13. And one is disabled, she's 19. We have 4 dogs. My husband used to be a truck driver. They took it when he couldn't pass physical anymore. Anyway, I work a lot there. I do work a lot there, but we kind of, got in a bad predicament or whatever. But nonetheless, I work there. In the past month, not only have they, now mind you, there's a lot of people, truck drivers, everything that stay there. They just use the place in the yard or whatever they do, but nothing gets said. Nothing gets said to them, nothing gets said to anybody. Because I have a camper. I'm working on getting a place because I have a camper. They told us we had to leave. They came and served my boss with a summons. Told us we had to leave. And I know that that's not right, but and they basically use a lot of scare tactics, I think, is what's going on. But all I'm trying to do is live and make a living and work. That's all I'm trying to do. And to just be told that we don't matter and just to get shoved off and being told just to leave the community. My son's been going to school here. He really likes school a lot. He going to speech and shading clinic. He's doing really well. And my husband, what's been happening is I watched them pull over, bring the 2 RVs back to back, broke down with. I watched them do it. I watched the rest of the people that own those RVs. And they said they would come back in 2 days and get them and never did. I watched them arrest somebody the other day and leave his car there. Say they would come back in 2 days and they never did. They're leaving these things there, junking it up, and then pushing us off. Those campers still sit there, but they're not the ones they're making leave. As a cop said the other day, she's not worried about the abandoned vehicles, it's the people living in them. That's what she said. Now that bothered me a whole lot. There's something really wrong with this picture. Okay? Something really wrong with this picture. I don't know what's going on, but it's not right. I have family. All I'm trying to do is work and live. I'm not on drugs. I don't drink. Nothing. Just trying to take care of my husband. So I don't know if y'all had any meetings over it. I know that that's the excuse they're using in town council. Is the reason we're getting done this way. That's what I got told.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate them. You put your name down on that? Okay, thank you. Okay, anybody else with, let's see, there's another person there. Will, can you let them come on up?
Yes. Mr. Blanc. Raise his hand and just have to unmute Mr. Blanc and you can speak.
Mr. Blanc, can you unmute your mic?
Hello, Mayor and Council. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
All right. Yeah, I just wanted to point you to a letter that I sent to all of you on Saturday. I wasn't sure if I could make this meeting at all or not, but it's an important item for our project. Again, Tom Blanc representing Falcon Commerce Center for the ownership group. So what we're asking is for the council to consider phasing in pre-application meetings and final PUDs as you progress through, kind of getting back on track. The reason for taking the moratorium back in January, we've got a project that, we want to make sure we don't lose, and we want to try to avoid winter condition costs by pushing the approval process so late that we have to build through the winter. It's a $450,000 cost. So that's the request. And from the city's perspective, ultimately, when the moratorium was put in place, we understood the situation with staffing and needed to sort of catch your breath. But I feel like, we've been getting back on track for that. And one way to avoid a backlog in July is to allow some of these items to be feathered back in. So that's the simple request. It was in the letter. I just wanted to reiterate the importance from our perspective, and happy to take any questions about it.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other public comment? Okay, we will move on to council authorization items. I don't think we have any, do we?
I just have an update that Madeline Vandenhoek would like to update you on the P51 art pedestal project at Town Hall that Colin Saber is completing the funding for.
Oh, I am very eager to hear about this.
Well, good evening, council. As you know, Colin Saber is a local scout who is working on his Eagle Scout project. And that is to put a sculpture in front of Town Hall of a P51 in honor of a World War II veteran. He has raised the majority of the funds for this project, and he would like to get started this summer and going ahead and putting that art sculpture up. So that is the update that I have as of right now. But if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them.
Just head nod, you're okay with us getting started. All right, thank
Go
you.
for it.
We're gonna have to remove a tree and replant that tree, and hopefully it'll survive.
So,
Monument Ridge.
a question with that, with the sculpture project. Is the intention, just so we get this out now and start kind of advertising, not only about the sculpture, which is awesome, but the ballot box, is that still going to?
I'll provide you an update on the ballot box when we get to council comments, if you'd like.
Okay, that's fine.
Is that it? Okay, any other authorization items? Okay, any council comments?
Sorry,
I do.
Tina did want to hold up something you gave her and talk about that, so.
What, that we gave her?
You
Oh, the bike to work?
Bike for work.
I'll never make it,
Okay,
but I support it. I mean, it's great. So June is Bike Month in Colorado. We'll be celebrating bicycling as a fun, efficient, and healthy transportation choice throughout June, with over 39,000 miles of bicycle infrastructure around Colorado. As we all knew, statewide e-bike tax credit, biking in the state is more accessible and more popular than ever. We hope you will join us this June in promoting bicycling as a fun, healthy transportation option to your communities. And that is for Wednesday, June 26th, 2024, Bike to Work Day.
you have a little bit of a drive, a little bit of, you both do?
Yeah, yeah.
I am going to
Like
take my
me,
bike
I'll
out.
Never make it to.
I'm gonna drive around my block and come right back into my house.
Done that in other states. I'm 10 miles on the left to go, and that was. That took my breath away. The elevation was.
All right, so as far as the ballot box, we've had several meetings with our county clerk and recorder. There is supposed to be a temporary box being installed at 259. I don't know when that's going to be. Have you seen any construction or anybody out there? Madeline?
No, we have a sign on our door now. And I know that later in the month of June, they'll be coming to set up our conference room, but I have not seen anything for a ballot box yet.
Okay, well, there's supposed to be a temporary while they procure the permanent one, and the permanent one requires concrete and steel bars and cameras and Wi-Fi and all that. But that is the commitment from the county. And that's supposed to be ready before the general election, which is in November.
Mm-hmm.
I will follow up with Mr. Schleicher. It's been a couple weeks since I've spoken, unless Madeline, you're in touch with some of his staff.
No, however, My understanding was perhaps they were going to have a person holding the box when they were accepting the ballots in June and not necessarily a temporary box, but we can follow up and find out for sure.
I think there'll be a lot of people concerned about handing their ballot to somebody.
Put this in your pocket.
Not happening.
Right. I think it's sort of similar to how they do it.
Yeah, that
like-
that is traditionally how they did it when they were here. They would hand it to somebody on that election day.
Oh, on election.
On election day.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I was like, who's that person with all those ballots?
They're election officials.
Right. All right, any other comments?
Yes, I have one.
Oh, go ahead. Here we go.
Silver Key has a ribbon cutting this Friday morning at 9 o'clock at the thrift store, the new thrift store at 105 in Palmer Lake. And it's quite the expanded area. It's really very nice. Be there if you can, please. The other Silver Key comment is, we had a meeting this morning, the advisory council, and once again, the hero of the conversation was our IT director.
Okay, good job, Will.
Yep,
Good job, Will.
I love him. Thank you.
Awesome.
I'm good, fine.
I have a question about the planning department and the hiring, the status of the positions.
Council, we just completed our interview process for the planning technician position, and we'll begin going through the resumes and setting up interviews for the planner 2 position shortly.
Was there one or two positions?
There are 2 positions. We have a planning technician position, which will be the person sitting at the front counter, handling our files, and providing excellent customer service at the front door. And then the planner 2 position will be additional planner to help do intake of development plans and answer phone calls with questions about development and other investments in town.
In a perfect world, while you're looking over resumes and doing interviews, when do you think the onboarding is going to take place?
The onboarding for the planning technician position will occur most likely during at the very beginning of July for the planning tech, and I would suspect that the planner 2 position would be later in July, if not the beginning of August.
Okay, and the reason why I'm asking these questions is because that July 15th date is rapidly approaching. We're just over 30 days away.
I am very motivated.
Anything else?
No, I wanted to ask that question because I have concerns that we're just over a month away from lifting that moratorium.
Actually, they came back to us at the last meeting, or was it the meeting before? Indicating that they were gonna be asking for an extension. Wasn't that the
No,
email that went
We
out?
were just gonna update you on July 15th.
Oh, I thought there was
Tell
gonna,
you exactly where we were on July 15th
okay, I
and
thought I
let you
heard.
make that decision. That we weren't gonna ask for an extension, but we're gonna update you and then let you make that decision based on our update.
Okay, my misunderstanding. Then there you go. July 15th is coming fast. If there is no other comments, then I will look for a motion.
One quick, this goes back to kind of what Steve was saying. Where are we with the comp plan and updating that?
So interesting, you should bring that up because my email set off an alarm on May 31st, which was the 1-year anniversary of when the $200,000 DOLA grant was sent to me. And we had budgeted $200,000 in last year's budget. So we have the $400,000 expected amount of money to be spent. And it's been now a year. And I guess I too have the question, when are we starting the comp plan? When is the RFPs going out?
That's an excellent question. Keeps me up at night. It is my intention that we will start the comprehensive plan this year.
We will, I'm hoping to schedule with you a workshop with you and Plan Commission to go over the scope of the RFP before it goes out. And then we'll send the RFP out after that. But again, the intention is to begin the comprehensive planning process during this calendar year. I expect that the comprehensive planning process will take between 18 and 24 months to complete. This is a significant project. We have significant dollars to offer to the analysis and the community participation needed for a comprehensive plan update of this type.
And also not only the comp plan, but we're also looking at a parks master plan and a downtown master plan being part of it. We were working with another partner to give us another $100,000, possibly to help fund all of those three.
I don't think that we should be delaying the comp plan in order to wait for funding on two other plans. That's just my opinion. What is DOLA's time period to spend the money? What's their, they awarded us $200,000 a year ago, May 31st. I know you were not here, but what is the time frame for us?
We met with Todd with DOLA, and he's fine with the progress that we've made so far. We have another meeting with him this week. Yep. I think this week or next week, we have another meeting with him to update him on that. And he's fine with our timeline right now.
Well, these other plans would just be part of the comp plan anyway.
Yeah, it's actually cheaper to do them all together.
Right.
Yep.
Right.
They're all part of the comp plan.
And we're not postponing the RFP to wait for additional funding. We're
Right.
moving forward as quickly as I can get it to happen.
Thank
you. Bob's working on an agreement with that partner right now. And as soon as he has that, we're going to present that to the council for approval and then move forward.
Okay. Now can we adjourn?
No, one more.
Serious?
Yeah.
Go ahead.
Noticed, just for the police officer in the room and for the town manager, I see a lot of yard signs creeping up in various locations.
Yes.
Over in Jackson Creek, whether it's voting for people or.
So the police chief's keeping on top of that. He's, and Commander Lupton is in charge of that. And Commander Lupton's been sending out our PSAs and police officers out to pull those signs. So anytime you see those signs, please get onto our reporting system online. And that way they can track those, texting me and calling me and stuff like that. I have to do the same thing basically as I get online and put them on our reporting system. But anytime you see those, just go straight online, put those in our reporting system, and we'll send somebody out there to pull them.
Okay. And then lastly, with what, do we need to hear anything more about the gas station and removal of items other than?
I think I sent out an update this past week to the entire council, and that's the latest update I've got. Typically, our planning director and the police chief update me every Wednesday. And when I get that update, I send that to the town council.
I'm sure the police are, yeah, I'm not sure if you want to comment, but I'm sure you're addressing saying that the notification to move is for their safety, not for just clearing house. It's more of a life threat or safety reason for that to take place.
Yeah. Definitely. Speaking a little personal.
We have a very good officer out there that is taking care of business, doing a great job.
Don't dispute that. I just.
Well, none of us are heartless here, but
Yeah.
you know, it's,
But she was living in the camper, just to
Yeah.
clarify, she's
I-
the whole,
there is no easy solution for this, but,
that's gut wrenching.
you know, I don't know what you do about it. I don't know her personal situation. It doesn't sound good. And wish we could help. I don't know how we would be able to do that without the, just not enforcing ordinances, but
We're not gonna get into that, because if we don't enforce one, you see what kind of crap that gets us into with people thinking that we should just terminate ordinances because they
well,
think it
we're
violates
having
one
that
thing or
problem with
another.
the signs right now.
I know, but we keep up on it. Nothing, I was just talking about, we should maintain, right, we should be,
Consistent.
yes. Thank you.
Consistent. right?
Definitely. And that's our intent. Talking with the chief, he sends people out there. Matter of fact,
The home developer that keeps putting their signs up and down Jackson Creek in the little, are we going to the developer that has an arrow saying this is where I am and telling them stop putting the signs in the right of way?
yes, he is. He's sent out, the PSA has sent out letters to all the developers and all the builders.
Seems
telling
like
them
some
not
of
to
them
put 'em
don't
out.
want to listen.
Probably so. And just like in the Valero case, they had to be issued a citation to get their attention.
Right.
And that's
Okay.
probably going to happen here too.
All right. Can we adjourn now? Motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
All in favor?
Aye.
We're adjourned.